Welcome to Tapestry Feminine Collective Podcast, the show featuring presenters and artists from the 1111 Tapestry Feminine Collective experience. Now, here's your host. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. This is Arlia Hoffman, and you're listening to the Tapestry Feminine Collective Podcast. It is the companion podcast to the online community and event coming in November 2023. And please feel free to check out tapestryfemininecollective.com for more information. I'm excited. Registration goes live in a few days. Also, feel free to join us on the Facebook group. It's a growing community of women really feeling into where we're headed as a species and as women. So today I'm thrilled to have another one of our presenters, Jill Angelo, and I'm going to read you her bio and we'll just dive right into conversation. Jill Angelo worked for more than 25 years in business and operations management after receiving an education in marketing and design. With a background in both psychology and the mystical arts, she took her diverse toolkit into the fast-moving world of spiritual self-help publishing, where she's worked with such authors as Caroline Myss, Marianne Williamson, Andrew Harvey, Mathew, and Mona Lisa Schulz. Just a powerhouse of authors. During that time, she delved deeply into spiritual studies and practices, traveling extensively to Asia, Africa, Europe, and North America. Her fine-tuned abilities and out-of-the-box approach to life have uniquely prepared her for creating sacred spaces for people with wide-ranging interests and budgets. She's the author of Sacred Space, Turning Your Home into a Sanctuary. Jill is the founder of the Moondog Farm, a 501c3 U.S. nonprofit, and an ordained animal chaplain dedicated to helping honor animal lives and heal human hearts. Learn more at jillangelo.com. Welcome, Jill, to Tapestry.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. It's such a gift to be here today.
I love this. You have such a rich path, career and personal path. I smiled at the word sanctuary because it's a key word for me as well. An arm of my work is the Women's Sanctuary. And I just realized the connection between sacred space and sanctuary and your work with animals. Tell me what sanctuary means to you.
Sanctuary is a necessity. I don't think that we function as well as we think we could or should without having a place to allow us to go as deep within as we will allow ourselves. We need to nurture ourselves. We need to find solitude. We need to take breaks. We need to pause and reflect. We need to spend time in nature. And I thought, as I think a lot of people did, that COVID would have given many of us that opportunity, where instead, for a great number of people, it knocked people into spirals because they were not used to spending as much time in their homes or nature. They did get some nature in it, but we found how we really lived during those times. Much clutter, much chaos, a lot of uncertainty, a lot of the past, almost smothering us into the future and prohibiting us from being able to really embrace who we are, what we want to be, and taking for granted the environment that we've established and created for ourselves. We valued our job environments and the offices and environments that we went to in much greater, different levels than the places that we called home. Mm-hmm. So that's a long answer to a short question. I do believe it's a necessity.
Yeah, and I feel like that the chaos it created is within us. It continues Yes,
Yeah.
even as I would say the emergency has passed, we're still in that turmoil of what does our home space mean to us, and what does it mean to support us? And what, by extension, our work life, what does that look like? It's all still in flux.
Many people went on levels of shopping sprees, and they actually brought a lot more chaos and a lot more stuff into an already, for many, stuffed environment. One of the things that we talk about in my book on self-care, and another part of it on purification, is cleaning the space.
Mm-hmm.
And the Parliament of World Religions was just here in Chicago, and I had the great blessing of being able to present sacred space, creating sacred space to people. It was one of the selected, and it, which is one of the main things that I bring and I pose to many people, is most of the people who are going to listen to this podcast are going to be women. So I will say to all of those listening, I think the majority have a pair of jeans or a shirt or a dress or a skirt that we wore at some point in our lives, and we don't fit in it anymore. But yet we hold on to it because we're going to use that to motivate ourselves to lose the weight and go back to what was versus who we are. And there's such a connection in that. Many women have had children. You'll never fit in those jeans, most likely again. Your body's different. You've birthed children. You've experienced this incredible gift of life. Why would you want to fit in those jeans again? What, I get the signification, but let's get another pair that fits the gorgeous body you have now and strut your stuff in those the way that you may have done. And even for those who have not had children, I'm one of those people. I did it, and I was such a relief to let him go, because I didn't realize the way that, as we've been taught, Jacqueline and I, coming from Carolyn, we know that psychic weight creates body weight. And it was doing that. I would look at those jeans in the closet and be like, yeah, I don't fit in you, but I'm going to go have that iced coffee, right? Or I'm going to go have that tiramisu. And it starts to wreak havoc on our psyches of where our expectations of what we could or should or want to have been versus who we are now. And I think that's a big piece of hand in hand in becoming. And when you start looking at all of the extra that you have, or people who have exercise equipment in their homes and it's become another closet, we drape clothing and things over it because we know we should do it, but we don't. We're exhausted. We don't want to do it. And then there's that push and pull of what we're doing to ourselves psychologically. I should be on there. If you're too exhausted, no, self-care would say, take care of yourself. But we create these scenarios to keep up with society that aren't necessary.
Yeah, you're speaking my language now. I talk a lot about being able to let go of all the expectations and the cultural waters we're swimming in, to be really true to yourself about, what do I actually want? What am I actually willing to do? What's actually aligned with who I am? And yeah, those jeans from 6 years ago, 10 years ago, last week, that are not aligned with who I am today is dead weight. It is clutter. It's mental, emotional, and psychic clutter for sure.
Sure is.
And so what led you to write the book about sacred space?
I was engaged. The short version was I was engaged, and he died the very next day in a horrific 5-car accident that he had the premonition of 2 days before, when we got engaged, that I died in the same accident.
Wow.
So we had purchased a house that was a fixer-upper. We wanted to do that together. And now he's gone, as long as with all of the hopes, the dreams, the children, all of those kinds of things. Because if you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans. And boy, did I tell God what I was going to do. And now, in order to even sell it, I had to fix it. I had to repair. I had to put drywall in. I had to tile. I had to do what we were setting out to do. And I'm in this place of utter complete, horrific grief.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to get out of bed, but fortunately I had dogs, so I got out of bed to take care of them. And little by little, I rebuilt myself. And I shouldn't even say necessarily that I rebuilt. I recreated and I discovered more than anything who I was, because I couldn't go anywhere. I was paralyzed in what grief does to us. So it was a nurturing, actually, it became nurturing, and it became this great gift to choose color, to sit with color and really say, what color speaks to me? Because all the magazines say I should have at that point, the color of the time was Navajo white. I think it was Sherwin-Williams. The whole
I have
world
that in
wanted
my
Navajo white.
bedroom.
Okay. Everybody wanted Navajo white.
Yeah.
And I wasn't called to Navajo white, but the influences around me said I should have Navajo white.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't. I painted colors like avocado green and rain, a blue that was called rain, and a color that was something like rum raisin. And I remember opening those beautiful color wheels and just walking around and being so entrenched in what color was and how it spoke to my heart, or what texture felt like. Really sitting with texture and closing my eyes to truly feel what it felt like, because we do feel with our eyes.
Yes.
Many people don't like lace, but if you close your eyes and you touch lace, it's an entirely different concept. So I did it through my grief, and I came out on the other side of grief with a mission and a plan, and above all, a pretty good idea of the anchored, grounded version of me. And that's not to minimize the hell that grief is in any way, shape, or form. I made a pact with my stepfather that any invitation I was given, I would say yes and never turn anybody down unless I was sick. And I went to every one of them to get out and be about people.
Mm-hmm.
Yet I realized that I began soon enough looking forward to coming home, because so much of what I no longer needed, because that dream now became a different dream, I had to let go and purge, and I had to embrace what was. And it was okay if I didn't have a sofa. It was me. When I got that sofa, I held on to that sofa for 20 years and gave it to my brother. So it was a difficult entry to a much needed journey.
It's just stunning to think about the such deep grief and the being cracked open and the pain of that. And yet the fertile ground that was for reworking, reinventing yourself, and in the midst and reflecting it in the space around you as you did it. Just, it's a whole different creation than it would have been in your, had that marriage happened and had he lived. It's just a whole different dimension.
I'll tell you what, I would have had Navajo white walls because I was not embraced with myself. And I get that there are kids involved, and we have spouse, and we have in-laws, and we have all that kind of stuff. And it can get messy and sticky and prickly and frustrating and all that. And yet, if our children have their own rooms, I think it's really important that they too are part of their own creation in said room. And you know what? It's paint. And if we can afford to offer them that they want to live in a tangerine orange bedroom, let's let them, because it embraces them in that version of a mini sacred space within the giant sacred space. And it's super important. I remember my brother growing up, he didn't like the light. And my parents, they were cool. He painted the room black. He put tin foil over the walls of the windows, darkening curtains, everything glue in the dark. And it was this magical transformation that we would go in there and we would watch the stars and such on the ceiling and the moon on the ceiling. And it was one of the greatest gifts he had.
Mhm.
And I was grateful for it too, because they embraced who he was and what he needed for that time. And it wasn't that time went on for a long time, and it wouldn't have mattered if it did. It was what he needed in his life at those moments to have his sacred necessity sanctuary.
Sacred necessity.
Yeah, I believe that it's a necessity to have sanctuary. I truly believe that we need that component in our lives.
Mhm.
Some may already, and some look at it from a practical component. Taking a shower is an act of that too, as is when we were at Parliament and I asked people, we were talking about solitude, and I asked people, how many of you, the only solitude you receive is the drive to work after you drop off your children for school? And half of the room went up. And it's true. And there was a lady there who posed a really great question. She goes, I have ample solitude. So should I consider doing it in the reverse where I see people? And I said, yes, because we sometimes need that opposite as well. And for some, driving in silence, that pure silence, it's not that you don't hear the trains and the planes and the automobiles and all that going around you. It's a white noise type of thing. It is solitude to be in that car where people recalibrate their compass and they get in alignment and they're ready to walk into their job. And again, it's a necessity.
Yeah, I know solitude for a lot of people means different amounts in different ways, but absolutely has been vital for
Mm-hmm.
me, and to cultivate it and create space for it. How else do you help people cultivate their sacred space? What other ways?
I really enjoy doing things such as this, like our discussion here, and being able to participate in Jacqueline's amazing tapestry forum. I have done workshops on it. I have a course for it on a platform. And I worked for a while and broke out of it for a bit because we started our 501c3, the Moondog Farm. I worked with a lot of realtors, and that was wonderful because we would stage and clear the home before the home would go on the market. Oftentimes, you've got some bittersweet feelings before we're letting a house go, before the new owners come, or you've got some struggles in getting the house sold because of location or what have you. And that was always really exciting because those homes would sell pretty quick. Usually within 45 days, they were good to go. I mean, the market was much different years ago than where the market is now. There was a lot more homes to choose from for people, where it wasn't this frenzy to bid with these super high rates and competition, and we're out of our means. We can't even afford it. And we haven't even bought it yet, but we have to have the home type of thing. So that's usually the way to go. And oftentimes, when we're having deeper conversation, I think it just naturally unfolds.
Mm.
I think that people just start to talk about, when you listen to people talk about their everyday life, and they'll go, yeah, I don't want to go home. Or you're at work and everybody's hanging out, and then they want to go to happy hour because they don't want to go home. And you start asking why. My house is a mess and I live in chaos. It starts a conversation that gets to be very interesting, and things unfold from there.
Yeah, I have a friend who talks about the places, or maybe the corners in your rooms, that make you wince. And those are good indications of places that need help.
That can often happen when we do things like feel an obligation to take hand-me-downs that come from family or friends, and we feel this obligation to put them on display. Or we have things that we've mixed in with our partners that it may not be the proper place to put something, but we have roommates, we have our partners, we have our spouse. We've engaged in different items that are now part of, quote, us. Where do we put that? Or there's residuals left over from others. That area could use a great clearing, whether it's a smudge or salt or a simple prayer or release that are necessary too. We've all walked into homes, or so-and-so's having a party. And people are like, yeah, I don't want to go to so-and-so's house because they don't want to go because it's total chaos and they know it. And some aren't as verbal to say that. Some just energetically know. We all know there is one house we cannot wait to be invited to, and there's another house that we dread being invited to. All of that is energy and contents and chaos and a lack of, I'll go as far as to say sacredness or just I'm thinking of a different word. Sometimes sacred scares people. They take it as being too religious. And there is a religious component in it. Sacred is to be honored, and it's in reverence. And I would hope that most of us would look at our homes that way. You built them. They're these temples that we put our body that is a temple inside of it. So
yeah, I love the way you talk about it. You're helping people rethink to give their home honor and reverence that creates a sanctuary for themselves. And so if you're to care for it in the way that they would care for themselves, and it's all built in there together, the self-care and the care for your home that reflects who you are. It's so interesting. I talk about that in the sense of physical well-being and your health. And I really hadn't thought about it in the terms of creating the space around you, your physical surroundings, with such integrity to who you are that it feels like you and reflects who you actually are.
Perfect way of saying that. So thank you for that eloquence, because that's true. That is true. It is a reflection of you. It doesn't have to be a reflection of the big box stores or the trends that are in magazines. That's them. That's commercialized. So when we go to the box stores and we buy art, and my favorite is we buy art of things that we have photographed on our own vacation.
Yes.
Like sunrises
but
and
that one's better. I'll get the one from IKEA, right?
And it's, what are you doing? You had this incredible moment that will live on forever. Put that on a case and hang that on a wall. Tell me the story. And I say that too. When I walk in your home, I want to point at, pick up, grab, and go, tell me the story of what this is. And have you tell me said story, not I bought this at XYZ.
Yeah, beautiful. I have so much family art. I'm running out of wall space.
How wonderful.
But yeah, I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
It's between, all sorts of artists in the family and myself. It's really beautiful. So let's talk about Moondog Farm. And it's not lost on me that your book is about sanctuary, and you're also working with all these animals in sanctuary and as an animal chaplain. Tell me about that work and how you got into it.
I've been rescuing for as long as I can remember. I was still at home. I moved out at 22. By 24, I was already rescuing dogs. And in 2014, I was working in an open intake shelter, and an open intake shelter means that animals can be euthanized for space because they take in every animal and they do not refuse. And so, like right now, where we are in society, we are at a crisis. There are too many animals and not enough homes and too many breeders, and it's expensive, and we don't have enough veterinarians, and the entire system is taxed. So I started rescue, and when I was working at the shelter, we would take the animals that needed the most care, and that could be in a cage holding up valuable space for weeks versus days. So we didn't want others to lose lives. So my husband and I took them in, and we had enough at the house that we lived in, which was in cul-de-sac area, which was great, except we were under the radar and we needed more space. So we moved down to the Indiana border, and we started a 501c3 called the Moondog Farm because I love the moon and I love dogs. And we take special needs dogs. So we have a number of them that are in diapers or wheelchairs or can't walk. And then we got into helping guinea pigs and rabbits because there's such a need for them. So we've helped an enormous amount of guinea pigs and rabbits, and we have a potbelly pig named Elmer. And it felt that the very next step was to combine my spiritual life that I love so much with the animal world that I love so much. And this amazing program from the Compassion Consortium by Reverend Sarah Bowen came along on becoming an animal chaplain. And I was recently ordained in June, and I love it.
That's beautiful. How does that look to be an animal chaplain?
We honor animal lives and we heal human hearts. And my main focus is to really work with people in the shelter system and the rescue world, because it is most definitely a language that unless you're in it, it's really hard to relate to. We're constantly saying no. We're frequently being told how we're hated and people are going to kill their animals and all kinds of threats and overwhelmment. We're all in competition for people to donate to us. And then on top of it, you have these tremendous losses and grief for animals that we barely know, that others just disregarded as trash. It's a world that I never thought I'd be in, and now I know I'll never leave, and I want to be able to be in it and give as much of service as I can.
I bow to the work and to your calling to it. Because I've never heard of an animal chaplain, it tells me there's a need.
Definite. And it's a new concept. It's becoming more known. We do one-on-ones, we do funerals, we do animal blessings, we work with people who have lost a pet and want to bring in another pet. I've done a few vigils for those that have passed away. I've done a few for horrific situations where air conditioners have gone out on trucks transporting animals, and there's been numerous casualties on those trucks, none of which are the same, all of which are difficult. The grief is deep. People love their pets, and some people love their pets far more than they love their families.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Because they are angels with fur. They are so in integrity and so pure. Yeah.
Yes.
I so appreciate that. As you're talking, I'm reminded of, I live in the greater Atlanta area, and years ago, someone transporting a young buffalo, very young, on the freeway, stopped, and the buffalo fell off, and he was going to have to be euthanized. And I was driving by just as he fell off, and people were stopping, and I was just devastated. So I pulled over, and I would have loved to have been able to go over and touch him, but he's a wild animal. So I stood on the side of the road and just prayed as long as I could. What else could I do? But that's one of a number of stories when you interact with life and the human's impact on animals. I think it's Neil Donald Walsh who calls them the animals we have caused to be dependent on us. And so therefore, what responsibility do you take for that? So I'm very grateful for you and others like you who feel so called and devoted to animals that are dependent on us.
Thank you. And we have to be mindful of our choices too. Right? We do. Our food choices, our clothing choices, our makeup choices, all of the products. Those creatures are involved in all of it. And it's also about building awareness. It's unfortunate that Buffalo had such an awful, traumatic experience. Yeah. And through that, though, we know that majestic, amazing creature touched the lives around him or her, because you speak of it today.
Yeah, I know he did. I know he did, because it was something that anyone who heard about it, but particularly those who witnessed it,
sure,
would remember. I appreciate you bringing up the mindfulness because it does ripple out into all our lives, the impact of our choices on the domestic animals and the wild animals and testing and all of that. So when in November, when Tapestry happens, you're going to be presenting on sacred space.
Yes.
Tell us more about that.
There are 12 steps that I learned through my journey that I cannot wait to share with the people who are joining and a part of this incredible weekend. We are going to, I let Jacqueline know, I want people to bring a pen, a piece of paper, a pen, an open mind, and their favorite soft article of clothing.
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about things like practical altars and sound and ways to purify and text. And it's going to be rich. And it's going to be, in a way, a trip down memory lane. Some things people are going to take away as new. Many things people are going to go, hey, yeah, I remember that. And that's what my job is. I want you to remember. And I want to put you back in touch with X, Y, and Z.
Remembering who you are.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Jill, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate your presence here and your presence in Tapestry.
Thank you. I'm so grateful to be a part of this.
Thank you. Thank you for being here with us. Tapestry Feminine Collective will be happening November 10, 11, and 12, 2023. And I, as part of the Women's Agency, are thrilled to be an Indigo sponsor, as well as our Sapphire sponsor, Cassie Seal, trained medical intuitive. So together we are helping birth this, not just in an event, but a collective of women and a new way of working together in the world. And we would love for you to join us. You can visit tapestryfemininecollective.com. So thank you, Jill, for being here. Thank you, everybody, for being with us. And we'll see you here again next time on Tapestry Feminine Collective podcast. Thank you for joining us on Tapestry Feminine Collective podcast. To learn more, visit tapestryfemininecollective.com.